me out with
your words.
with these words. So isn't it a great story? I haven't said anything yet. So three things. So I literally learned these three things: no cap, slaps, and sus. Somehow we got into one of the meals that we were having, and the person said, "Oh, I didn't like the fish," and I go, "Man, the fish smelled sus, but it slaps." No cap.
You did not.
Yes, I did. I used all three of them in one sentence, and that one thing everybody started applauding.
Oh my gosh, you're such a dork.
Everybody totally applauded for that very reason, because they said this is the biggest dork in the entire world. Doesn't matter how long I'm with people. It very quickly, water rises to the dork level for me.
Right.
So I'm.
Oh. Do you know that one time I legit said LOL when Nicole was telling me a story?
Instead of actually laughing?
Yeah, she was talking, and then all of a sudden I go, LOL. I'm like,
oh, gosh.
That's the day and age we're in.
Well, hello there, folks. I'm Benny.
I'm Valerie.
And this is the podcast where brother and sister we introduce a subject. One of us will introduce it. It'll be a surprise to the other person. The subject matter is something so you can live your best life. And last podcast, we talked about thriving. And we're still looking for a name of our podcast. And thriving is in there. So it could end up being one. But what else do I want to say?
Or it could be living your best life.
Or it could be living your best life. That's right. So, hey, tell me, how are you?
I'm good. I am. I'm good.
Ooh. Wow. As if I was questioning it. You're good. Okay.
No, I was actually thinking about that on the way over here, because I was like, I told you I was a little late because I had to run back to the house, and then I was like driving, and then of course, if you leave a little bit later, traffic. But all I kept saying as I'm getting here was like, you know what? I'm going to get there when I get there, and I'm going to have fun hanging out with my bro doing a podcast.
I don't think you've ever called me my bro. It's like the weirdest thing ever. Okay. Sorry. Well, it's okay. You can do that.
I'm pretending I'm fifth grader. No, they
yeah,
don't.
I don't think fifth graders do that anymore.
I know.
You're pretending like you're 50
I pick up words
something.
that the fifth graders say, and then I said the other day to Peter, I said something like, "Ooh, that's very sus," and he's like, "What the heck is that?" But that's because all the kids say it.
Hey, you haven't heard my sus story, have you?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, so this is a great.
Oh wait, I did, but I think. Tell me.
So I have this story where people, because I'm in my MFT class. I told you guys several weeks ago I was in Chicago doing a residency for my MFT, and everybody in there is much younger than me. Actually, that's not true. There's a few people that are around my age, or at least I would say more mature, right, than 20-somethings. Most of them are 20-somethings. But somebody mentioned sus, which is apparently is like suspect.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, it's questionable, yes. Right? Then somebody also mentioned that is it slap? Did I tell you guys? Is it slap? Like means like something slaps. Slaps means something good.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's like, that slaps.
Okay.
So like our podcast
that's cool?
slaps.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'll have to remember that.
There you go.
Hashtag
slaps. And then there was a third one. What was the third one? The third one. Oh, true. It's like true that. What is it? No cap. No cap.
Oh, wow.
Means,
I have not heard that.
No cap means like it's not a lie. It's true and all that stuff. So by the way, we didn't introduce Iggy. Iggy's our sound person.
Yes.
So, and he's the one who helped me out with
your words.
With these words. So isn't it a great story? Yeah. I haven't said anything yet. So three things. So I literally learned these three things: no cap, slaps, and sus. Somehow we got into one of the meals that we were having, and the person said, "Oh, I didn't like the fish," and I go, "Man, the fish smelled sus, but it slaps." No cap.
You did not.
Yes, I did. I used all three of them in one sentence, and that one thing everybody started applauding.
Oh my gosh, you're such a dork.
Everybody totally applauded for that very reason, because they said this is the biggest dork in the entire world. Doesn't matter how long I'm with people. It very quickly, water rises to the dork level for me. Right. So I'm always.
I embrace my dorkness. I don't even care. You know that? Like, Nicole will go right along with my darkness. So will Dustin. He will just chime right in with my darkness. But Kylie, on the other hand, when I'm a dork, she's like, Mommy, stop. Mommy, stop. You know, if I start singing in the mall, Nicole will start singing. Nicole will start dancing. You know, in Dustin, if I start, like, I forgot where we were and I just started singing, he's like, wah, and he starts singing with me. But Kylie's opposite. But isn't it interesting that she will perform on stage in front of millions of, or I don't know.
Millions. Millions and millions. Bruce Springsteen, everybody.
No, but in front of thousands of people that she doesn't know. Whereas Nicole and Dustin, you put them on stage, they would just be like, get me off here.
That is
So
very
it's- yeah.
interesting. I think it's interesting. Artistic people often, it's weird because I love listening to podcasts about actors and singers, and it's amazing how many of them are introverted
Totally.
and have quite the different personality than what you might see on stage.
Yeah, for sure.
And you make assumptions when you see them on stage, especially if they're actors, because you kind of forget they're acting.
Yes.
You know, Dwight for me is
Yes,
not Rainn
that's
Wilson.
Dwight.
I mean, he's Dwight.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, so when all of a sudden now he's writing a book about spirituality, or
Yeah, you're like,
you're like, who is this dude? It's like, no, Dwight doesn't write books.
Yes.
Or at least not ones that anybody wants to read. so it's very different. But anywho, again, we spent time again this weekend.
We did. That was so much fun.
That really was fun.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember what we did, though. I remember that we had fun.
Because you had a lot of whiskey.
No, I didn't. I had an old fashioned
Oh, isn't that whiskey?
or two.
3.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I had two.
Oh, okay. Well, so you guys all got together and you invited us to come over
Oh, that's
for
right.
games, like a little barbecue and games or whatever. But we had already had plans with Nicole, so we came. We were like, should we go by there? Are they going to still be there? So I'm so glad we did because you guys were still full on playing games and.
We
and it
did.
was
Now,
fun.
I do have to tell you this too. I love smoking meat. So I love smoking, cooking. I love barbecuing. I love that whole idea. And so I smoked a tri-tip, sliced it up real thin, and then we actually just used deli ham. But then I put the flat, is it called flat iron grill? You know, the flat top grill type thing. And then we made cubanos. So when we kind of grilled cheese,
I don't even know what a cubano is.
so a cubano is usually, I'm actually not 100% sure what the main meat normally is, but we use tri-tip. And then you add ham, slice of cheese. We put pickles on it. And then we make it like a grilled cheese, you know, where you butter both sides and then you grill
Oh,
them
so it's on
both sides.
bread.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Sorry. It's a
Yeah.
cubano sandwich.
Oh, gotcha.
So, and so, yeah, so we kind of we do that thing. And so it turned out really, really good. Everybody enjoyed it. But I thought it was fun that mom and dad came too.
Yeah.
And they,
And they
played
played-
the games,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
even dad played the games. I mean, dad, he doesn't necessarily poo poo, but he just sits there a lot of times and is not really into it. But even he got into it. It was fun.
Yeah.
We did. I think the game that was a surprising game that I don't even remember how come we decided to do it was Four on a Couch.
Four on a couch.
Yeah, YouTube it if you haven't done it yet. And you have
That's
a
a
group,
fun game. It really is.
if you have a group of 12 or
yeah,
so.
yeah.
But it is a really fun game, and it was a really fun time. I always enjoy being with family. Always enjoy being with family, and it
Yeah.
was super fun. So,
Very, very fun.
are you ready?
I'm ready. Dive in.
So we are going to talk about something that I don't know if this is going to seem serious or if it's going to, I don't know where this is going to go, but I thought we would talk about anger and why people get angry and what they do with their anger. Originally, well, I'm just going to throw this out there. First of all, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not an angry person.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So I mean, I never see you get angry. Even when we were kids, I think this is something that was always interesting about at least the two of us. I literally cannot recall. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Ever you and I getting in a fight?
Well, I'll correct you on that one.
Go for it.
It was a weird fight. It wasn't even a fight. I was watching Judge Judy, and you decided that you were. I don't even know if it was Judge. No, it was probably Judge Wapner. To
I
be
was going to
honest with
say
you.
Judge Judy.
It was probably
Judge Wapner.
And I was watching
The
Judge
People's Court, everybody.
People's Court, yes. And you walked in and decided to change the channel. And of course, back then you have to walk in and go. Tut. And so you walked over to the TV, turned the channel to, I don't know, Speed Racer or something. I don't know what it was. And then I got up and said, I'm watching this. You go, I don't care. So then I walked over and went back. And then you did, we were doing this fight. And then I smacked you. and your eyes just filled up with water. You weren't hurt, like physically. You were hurt that I smacked. You don't remember this?
I vaguely do.
And
actually,
then
now
your
that you say
eyes
this.
just filled up with water because you could not believe that I did. And then I immediately got teary eyed because I was like, I can't believe I did that. But that's
That was mean.
Well, I know. But what was mean was that you turned the channel in midst of me.
I have to tell you what was mean is that you and Stephanie were older, or I guess you're always going to be older than me. And when we were growing up, we had one TV, folks, and it was one of those box TVs. We didn't have a remote, and you, like she's saying, you turned the knob, and there was 6 channels in those days,
Yes.
if that. And all I know is because you guys were older, I had to watch Mary Tyler Moore, and I had to watch.
Well, you can
what
blame that
other
on
ones?
mom and dad because that wasn't a choice I made as a kid. But I'm just saying, like, there were things that I agree with you that
I didn't get to watch kid
Yeah.
TV because you guys wanted to watch other shows.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, when I got to the point, I do remember because the same thing happened with Stephanie. This was funny because Stephanie used to beat me up. If
Yeah.
you remember, she could beat me up, and she beat up everybody who beat me up.
Yes, exactly.
So Stephanie was honestly the one that was the defender of the family, so to speak. And but I do remember the time that I did the same thing to her. Now I do remember this one. This is funny. But I remember that what happened was I was holding on to the knob.
Yeah.
And she couldn't move my arm, and she
turn it
started to just hit me and wail on me, and I started laughing.
oh my God, that's probably the worst thing
Which
to
made
do.
her more mad
Yeah.
and more mad and more mad. And then finally she did something where it just irritated me, and I punched her in the arm.
And then she was like, oh boy, he's grown up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Dad made sure that I knew that wasn't acceptable
Yes.
behavior.
Yes.
So we'll just say that
Well, I mean, in
that
all
never
honesty,
happened again.
you could have walked up to me and said, going back to my thing, you could have walked up to me and said, do you care if I watch blah, blah, blah? Or after you're done with this show, can we turn it to, but you just walked up and turned it like my show didn't matter to
Yeah.
me. Anyway, but
Yeah, that's
back
probably
to
true.
your
So
initial
you're right,
question.
though. But you're right. You're right. The fact is, I could have done that better. But so when we talk about anger, though, how do you? I'm assuming you've been around people who get angry, and so how do you deal? How do you deal with anger? What is your thoughts? Just when I say anger, those kind of things. What pops in your head?
Well, having known people with anger problems, to me, it's just like a definition would be something that would trigger someone to get very angry, very upset about something and not be able to turn back, because that's my experience with someone with anger. And you're right to say, I don't really remember getting angry about things. Like things have upset me or I've been hurt about things, but I don't necessarily get angry about something. But when I look at the people in my life who've been angry, it's a reaction to something. And it really does, I think, I guess me saying what I think it is hard because I've dealt with people that have anger problems.
And then you don't want to like box people in.
Yeah.
So let
yeah.
me even continue to guide it. What's interesting to me is anger. Would you classify anger as an emotion, or would you classify anger as an action, or what is anger in that sense?
Well, again, speaking from experience, I would say it could be both, because I know someone who gets angry from emotion because they're that hurt that they, instead of expressing how hurt they are or were, because they've gone to counseling and they don't do that anymore, but because they were hurt. So I'm thinking that it was more on an emotional level, whereas the other person that I dealt with anger, I think was just more, I think, to be honest with you, I just think it was immaturity and control.
So I think that the interesting thing that you're saying about anger for me that I first of all, I'm going to guess that you're talking about men. And the reason why I'm going to guess that is because one of the things that I notice about men, me being a man, is I recognize that we tend to attribute everything to anger. In other words, if we're feeling an emotion, and I actually think this is the case for a lot of people, they don't know how to identify what's going on in them, and so they just say they're angry. I'll never forget when I worked with youth, and there was a student I was working with, and he was actually really disappointed in something. Something had taken place. He was really disappointed. I said, "How do you feel?" He said, "I'm angry." But he was clearly not. He was disappointed,
Sure.
but he didn't know how to express
Express
it because
that.
there's no words for it.
Yes.
And just he went for anger. One of the things that I really wanted to address, and where I was really going, and I was actually thinking that I would start it off with this, but then I thought, I'm not sure how you would identify with it, but maybe you will now. I think that there's a lot of anger issues, and people live angry when they're dealing with resentments. And so I think resentment is a huge issue in a lot of people's lives that makes it so that they can feel anger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
What is your thoughts on resentment?
Well, I mean, again, it's if you're thinking of somebody, excuse me, if you're thinking of somebody that I am relating this to, because I think you're right. I think that a lot of women can tap into their emotions a lot easier than men do. And so I think men will automatically just throw out, well, that made me angry.
Right.
You know.
Well, and not only do they tap into it, I think part of the reason why they can tap into it is because women are more willing to share
Yes,
their
that's true
emotions
too.
with whoever.
Okay, so on the resentment part, do you think that a man could say, well, if they're going to use the word anger, do you think that they could say, I feel resentment to that? Will that even come to mind? I think a woman could. I think, and this is generally speaking, because obviously there's men that can feel these things or identify them, but I think a woman could feel like, oh, maybe I'm feeling this way because I'm resentful, or does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
But can a man identify that that's what it is? You being
Not
a man?
without. Well, I mean, again, I'm not going to speak for all men, of course,
Yeah.
but I would say in my experience in working with men in coaching, as well as my own personal life. Now, see, I have worked really hard to get rid of resentment in my life. So I mean, I have worked really hard to get rid of it. And so I can identify it really quick.
Oh, okay.
Quite frankly, I can identify it quite frankly faster than Patty, my wife at times. And I don't mean that to knock my wife, but it's like, I'm not your typical guy either.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I do talk about stuff, and
Yeah.
I probably, I talk a lot. I'm very external processor. So if it's going on in my head, it's going on in other people's heads because they're going to have to hear me. So I'm quite different in that way. There's a lot of men, though, when I talk to them in coaching or wherever, they struggle to identify what's going on because they're not used to expressing anything. They're not used to expressing their feeling. And really, again, we're going to do some generalizations here and say they're trained not to. You don't cry, you don't do that, you don't put your what do they say, get back on the horse kind of a thing and just go. It's like you can't be dealing with this and living
I mean,
with
that's
that.
so funny that you said that, because it starts at a young age, because this just happened the other day at school as the parents were picking up the kids. One of the boys was crying. I have no idea why, as he was leaving the school. But as soon as he got to his dad said, "Stop it, wipe those tears. You boys don't cry." And I was like, whoa. And I kind of wanted to walk over and go, yes, they do. And they can, and they should. But,
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because it's, 2023.
Exactly.
And so you would
I
think
was
that there's a
very
little bit-
surprised.
right.
Yes,
Yeah. You would
yes.
think that wouldn't be quite as obvious
Yeah.
because I think in general now people recognize
Yes.
that it's dangerous,
I
for
was
lack
very
of a better word,
surprised to hear that, yeah.
to say those kind of things. But so let me ask you this: what would be the opposite of resentment? If resentment, hey, did I just say that? Is it because
What would be the opposite of resentment? Let me look it up.
okay, maybe another way to say it is how do you deal with resentment? Like if you have it, have you ever had it? And if you do, I mean, how do you deal with resentment?
I'm trying to think of something that I've been resentful of, and I can't.
So one of the ways that I define I'm not going to call this a definition. What I'm going to say is one of the things that I would say brings resentment is expectations.
Okay, I thought of something. Just as
I
soon
was
as you
talking.
were, you're done. You're
I'm
done.
kidding, go.
No. Okay, I will tell. I was like, I don't think I've had resentment. Okay, I take that back. Just as you started talking, I'm like, oh, something came to mind. Expectations. As soon as you were, well, I thought of it right before you said expectations, but that's exactly what it is. I will resent my Peter when
You're Peter?
my Peter, because I was going to say my husband, but let's just use his name. There's been times, but I've worked through it because it's just like, you know what? This is my expectation that he is unaware of. So this is no fault to him, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? But I would be in there cooking the dinner, cooking the dinner, and then he's in there watching TV, you know, and then dinner's ready, you know, serve the dinner, eat the dinner, and then I get up and put the dishes in the sink. Then I start loading the dishwasher, and then, you know, I feel like, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm not saying I'm resenting the fact that he's not in here, but I am. That's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling resentful. And then the expectation is, why doesn't he hear me doing this? And why doesn't he come in and help me?
Yeah.
But now we can flip it and say, there's been times where he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Because I want him to know that that bothered me. You know what I mean?
Right,
So it
because
builds more
you're not
resentment.
fine, and you're clearly trying
Yes.
to say by your tone,
Yes.
I'm not fine.
Yeah. So, and it's building more resentment. But since then we've worked it, and he's just, you know, we've worked through that particular situation because I said, I just want you to like want to do the dishes. Why would I want to do the dishes?
Yeah, no, it's funny because, I mean, it's the classic. This is a very, I think we talked about this on our previous podcast at some level, but there, unexpressed expectations is certainly a place where people can feel resentment, and it's unfair to the other person. But that doesn't mean that you're still not feeling resentment, right? And then let's just even go one step further. Let's pretend like you said, you know, and Peter is a huge hockey fan, right? And it's the Stanley Cup. It's the last what are they called?
The finals.
Yeah,
The Stanley Cup final.
it's the finals, and it's the, what is it? There's 3 parts. What are the periods? It's the last period, and there, you know, there's 3 minutes left, and I don't know. There's it's gonna happen. You know, there was just a penalty, so they're short one man or whatever.
Right.
And then you say, hey, would you mind doing the dishes?
Yeah.
There's a good chance he's going to say,
Yes.
yes, I would mind right now. And then let's just pretend like he forgets,
Yes.
because now he's mad that that his team lost or whatever.
Yeah.
And so where I'm going with this is, when we have an expectation that something will happen, even if it's expressed, because you're using a non-expressed one, which really puts it on you, right?
It totally does.
It really does end
Yeah.
up putting it on you. But it could be times when you've even expressed it, it doesn't happen, and then you ultimately feel like frustrated by it. You know, one of the things we teach, I teach with clients because I deal with fundraising. And I always say, hey, because they'll say, oh, I know these people are going to give. And I'm always like, just be cautious of that.
Right.
Because if they don't,
Right.
now you might have a resentment
Sure.
pop up, because in here they might be really good friends, but you don't know their financial situation completely. You don't know everything that's going on. And it could
Right.
very well be that they all of a sudden are going, that they're a little bit frustrated or angry because it's like, this person didn't do it. It's like, yeah, they're my really good friends, but now I'm not really happy about the fact that they didn't give. And what is it? It's not the person's fault. It's completely the
Of course.
expectation of the person who's putting that on them. So so I like there's a saying in 12-step programs called it says expectations are resentments under construction.
Oh, I've heard that or read that before.
I
That's
think
good.
I might have told you that before.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
In
I'm
the
gonna
book I'm gonna write.
plagiarism.
Yes.
I'm going to go back and say, in those particular circumstances where I have learned, because he's told me, I don't expect me to know what you want unless you tell me. and I have no problem helping in the kitchen, whether it's cook the dinner, do the dishes. Just ask me or tell me, But you're right. But at the same time, I also have to be bendable. If there is a hockey game on and it's like even if there's just a hockey game, it doesn't have to be,
that's true.
sudden death or whatever. Yes, I will take care of it. And as soon as this is over, and I have to be okay with that. And I am okay with that. If it doesn't get done, I've also learned to just go, okay, well, you know what? It'll be get done tomorrow because I'm going to leave it and let him do it tomorrow because he said he would.
So I'm going to really put you on the spot.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say is that you've had, for lack of a better word, trauma in your life, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a fair statement?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So without you, I don't, it's not about trying to get into all the stuff that happened, but what I'm going to say is I'm going to guess that there was some resentment in those situations, or anger or bitterness, or how would you describe, what was going on with you?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that those are situations where I did feel like, why me kind of attitude, a little bit of, why is this happening to me? But, I do have to say, I believe in God, and prayer helps a lot, because I believe in it. A lot of people will say, well, do you believe prayer even helps? Well, I don't know if it necessarily is what I'm praying for is going to come true, if you will, but it helps me. It helps it. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
So in the situations that you're probably talking about, and we can even dive into those some other time, because I think that's actually, it might help somebody else in situations. But I'm sure I felt resentment in ways of saying, why is this happening to me? And why is the grass greener, over there kind of thing,
Now that's really interesting that you're saying that, because this is another area that I was going to talk about in regards to resentment is, I think that for me, when I would think of resentment, I would again think it has to be in the family, if you're going to call it something, in the family of anger, right? Or it's got to be in that family of things, because when I'm feeling resentful, when there's a resentment in my life, the way it manifests is in some kind of frustration and anger. And I was reading a Brené Brown book. I'm trying to remember which one, because I've read all of her books, I think. Anyway, she was talking about resentment, and she mentioned that she mentioned the same thing that I was saying to some guy, and she said to the guy, and this was like in her little podcast, and she said, is resentment part of, right before it started, is resentment part of like the anger family? I think that's the way she said it, or something to that effect. And then he said, no, it's part of the envy family.
Oh, well, that is interesting then, right?
Yeah, because what this guy was saying, and this is what he studied, is he was saying when we have resentments, what's really going on is we are envious of what somebody else has, or envious of, like,
I want to sit on the couch.
Exactly. I want to rest. Yes. I want to rest. And then
that's true.
And there's much bigger things, right? I mean, you can think about so many different resentments that take place, and part of it just has to do with, if somebody hurt us, then we want that person to be punished. And if they seem to be living a normal life, then there's an envy, there's a resentment, because it's like, how do they keep going? And yet I am still dying inside. I'm still totally dying. And this person is just living their life like nothing happened. And so I found that really fascinating, because I don't think I ever would have put envy. You did. You just did it a few seconds ago by just saying, well, I kind of envy, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just find that really interesting, that envy is perhaps part of that. What are your thoughts?
No, I think that I guess if you're going to correlate it with one word, I think that it would go more with that, because that's exactly how I felt. Like I wish, like I just said, oh, the grass is greener there. Why can't I be there? Why can't I be on the couch and him being in the kitchen? So it is a little more of like envious of somebody else's situation.
And then wishing it on or so. And so if we have an expectation, and so what's interesting about resentments, I guess, is what it really comes down to is, one thing that I, in studying for this a little bit, this podcast, and I kind of was interested to know, well, what does resentment do in a person, you know? And, you know, me coming from a pastoral background, I always think of resentments as unforgiveness. You know, there's these areas of
unforgiveness?
Yeah, meaning if I have not forgiven someone, then the resentment probably still resides there. And because if I forgive them and am able to move on, then all of a sudden I can be more free, for lack of a better word. I don't know how you want to say it, but
Yeah.
what do you think of forgiveness?
Well, I personally think it's funny you ask, because many years ago, I asked forgiveness from someone, and it was weird because I thought it didn't matter if they actually forgave me. Like, I had to forgive myself for the act. You know what I'm saying? So I look at forgiveness in a different way now. I would love for the person to say, yes, I forgive you, or whatever. But now it's like one of those things where I have to kind of forgive myself for whatever it was that I might have asked forgiveness for.
Right. Well, the thing about, so what you're asking for is so this is a little different.
Oh, okay.
Not that that's bad what you're saying, because you're still on the same subject, but it is an interesting conversation. Is you're seeking forgiveness
Right.
from someone else, and so when you're seeking forgiveness from someone else, what we're really trying to do when we seek forgiveness from someone else is we're trying to release ourselves of the burden of whatever we did that caused pain.
Right.
What's interesting is I was in therapy one time, and this is so bad how messed up am I. I got mad at my therapist. So we went for a walk, and during the walk, I can't even remember what it was, but he said something that quite frankly pissed me off. I can't remember what it was. But then we walked back to his office for like 15 minutes in silence because I was so pissed.
Wow.
And I don't remember if it was the next time I saw him or if it was in that session that I said to him, will you forgive me? And then he pissed me off again because what he did was he said, it is not for you to ask for forgiveness. It is for you to apologize. And for you to express to me how much you did not intend to cause that action. It is up to me as to whether or not I want to, forgive you.
Well, and that's interesting that you said that, because when it comes to me, I don't necessarily need somebody to ask me for forgiveness. I have forgiven people on my own merit. Like, I don't like, talking about like my ex-husband or whatever, like there's things with him that I've just said, I forgive you. And he's never even asked me for forgiveness or said he was sorry for something. But it was like, I needed that for myself to be able to just forgive everything and just move on from it. Like,
yeah.
If that makes sense.
It's fascinating because even as a pastor for years and years and years and years, I preached, I even said to my kids, you guys ask for forgiveness. But the idea was, I didn't want it's not about the perpetrator, really. It was about that's a really bad word because it's not like weird.
Yeah.
It sounds really strong, right?
Yeah.
But
No, you're right.
It's not like the aggressor. It's not really for the aggressor when we're asking for forgiveness. What we're really doing is we're saying, for the person who is offended, it's best for you to forgive me. Now, the side note to that is it's really good for me because I feel like left off. I feel let off the hook.
Sure.
But the truth is when when I do something that's painful to you, my family, or whoever, it's my job to express
your sorrow,
the sorrow for the pain that I caused them. And then it's between them and God and whoever.
If they want to forgive.
They want to forgive.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting in regards to our conversation here, I'm just going to say it, the best thing to do is to forgive. Because if you choose to hold on to it, then you hold on to resentment.
Right.
And ultimately that kills you.
Yes.
Ultimately that creates all kinds of problems. I looked up some things and it just says people who forgive are healthier, they live longer, they have less depression, less stress, they have longer marriages, they tend to be more spiritual. And these are all things that a lot of people want in their life. And yet at the same time, they're thinking, well, I'll just hold on to this one area of my life.
Yeah.
And they think you can compartmentalize it, and you can't. when you're carrying around resentment,
Totally.
it's you were going to express that in some way to somebody at some point.
Yeah, it's very freeing when you finally let it go.
Absolutely. And I really believe that forgiveness is the key to actually releasing a lot of people who are dealing with anger issues, I almost guarantee you they're also dealing with a lot of painful events that took place in their life, which they did not deserve. And the person who hurt them, if you're listening, they don't deserve the forgiveness. This is not about them.
Yeah.
This is about us. And that's the big point that I want to get at is when we are forgiving somebody, we're not forgiving them so that we can let them off the hook. We're not even saying that what they did was okay.
Exactly. It's for your own sanity.
Yeah. Well, I'm even going to say this. If you say what the person did is okay, and then you forgive them, that's a super shallow forgiveness. Because if you think it's okay and you're forgiving them, then it really, where's the...
Why are you even forgiving if it was okay?
Yeah, if it was okay. It's like, it's not...
Yeah.
So you're trying to trick your brain into saying, oh, I'm going to forgive this person. And so you're saying, well, it was okay. And so you're trying to make it like more justifiable to forgive, but you're still going to be carrying around that resentment because you really have the pain.
Yeah.
The pain is still there.
Yeah.
So
basically what you really should, if what you're saying, what I'm hearing is you should probably say that I accept your apology. And then within your own self, you decide if you're forgiving them or not. And to your point, for a healthier person, for a healthier you, it's in your best interest to forgive.
It's absolutely in your best interest to give. When we don't forgive, it's basically like saying, "Here, I'm gonna drink some poison and hope the other person dies."
Yeah.
So it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're hurting yourself.
Totally.
That's just all
they
there is
don't.
to
They
it.
don't know.
And I would even go one step further. You already mentioned this. I think it's super important that you do not. It doesn't matter if the person asks. So you were mentioning, if they express their apology and whatever, that you might say whatever, right? But the truth is that it doesn't even matter if they ask,
Right?
And I would even go one step further and say it's just important that the moment you're experiencing resentment, and everybody experiences resentment in a different way, right? So so you mentioned I don't remember how you mentioned that you feel it when he doesn't wash the dishes. What were you feeling? Like the physical feeling that you would have?
I would just be envious that he got to sit
you'd
down
be
and watch
envious,
TV,
right.
and I was just feeling, what word did I use? I don't know.
I don't know.
was feeling resentful that I had to wash him and he didn't.
Right. Well, for me, when I'm starting to get resentful, I start to get angry. I start to get a little hot. I get my palms
See,
might
it's
even
really
sweat.
interesting. I don't even know if I feel anger, and maybe I do, but
You feel envy.
yeah, I think it's if I feel more like, oh, I wish I could be sitting in there. Excuse me. I never equate it to that I'm angry, but
Yeah. Well, and that's...
I guess it's a very fine line, though.
Right. According to Brene Brown, at
Yeah.
least, or the person she was interviewing, resentment is in the family of envy. So, but really, anger is not a matter. Anger is the manifestation of whatever it is. So,
Exactly.
so I may be envying whatever,
Right.
but the way it manifests in me physically is with anger, with feeling, something in my head.
Now,
and
let
just
me ask
frustration.
you something.
Go for it.
What do you think about the phrase, you made me angry?
What do I think about the phrase, you made me angry? Well, it's inaccurate.
Exactly.
Oh, was this a test?
Yes.
Okay.
No. The reason I bring that up is because
people can't make you anything.
exactly.
So the truth is that when they're saying you made me angry, and perhaps a more appropriate way to say it is, when you said this, I interpreted it this way.
Exactly.
So that's another way. Another podcast I'm going to do one day is going to be on how our thinking creates bad action. But what's interesting is that what we hear, and then we translate it in our brain, and then we change it into something that is not necessarily factual, and that non-factual thing could potentially become something that creates resentment, or anger, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree with you, because I feel like you could. It's the same thing with happiness. Aw, Peter just walked in. No, because the same thing with happiness, right? Somebody can bring joy to your life, but hopefully you have happiness within yourself, right?
Right. Yeah. Because if you're depending on that person to bring
To
you
make you
happiness,
happy.
and then all of a sudden they don't,
Yeah.
they have an off day, then you have an off day.
Right.
And we just shouldn't allow other people to control the way we feel. That doesn't mean that if someone is having a hard time that we can't empathize with them but we don't want to get enmeshed with them where our feelings are basically their feelings.
Yeah.
It's like, but
Totally.
we do want to empathize with them and
Yeah.
let them experience it. But let me clarify a couple things just real quick on forgiveness, because we're going to kind of wrap up. The other thing that I would say about forgiveness that's super important, and I just want anybody that's out there, especially if you experience something pretty traumatic, that forgiveness is not in any way, shape, or form, I can't emphasize this enough, saying that what the other person did to you is okay. It's not that. And the deeper that you're able to feel the pain at the moment that you forgive, the deeper the forgiveness. I love this little thing. I saw this on Instagram 100 years ago, but
That is a long time ago.
well, yeah, it was right next to Jesus. And so when he was talking about it. So where is it? I can't find it. What did you do? Benny.
I wanna rock and roll on.
Oh, this is what it said. It said forgive and forget. And then in the forget had a X through it. And then it said forgive, and when you remember, forgive again.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, and
I
I
like
actually
that.
reposted it too, so
Yeah.
maybe it's because you're
Maybe I saw
following me.
that. Yeah.
But what's fascinating, what I really like about that is because I have yet to forgive someone one time when it's a painful thing. I mean, there's some things that are silly. You can let it go pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
But things that are that you carry with you, we just have to keep forgiving.
100%.
We have to keep doing it over and over and over
Yep.
again. And the fact that you're doing it over and over and over again does not mean that the first one didn't work per se. It just means that as long as the feeling is there, it means that we just have to keep getting to the root of it. And instead of letting it carry around in us forever and ever and ever, and then we just deny that that feeling is still there, it's important that we just continue to do the same thing and say that, I just want to completely forgive. The other thing is that I the forgive and forget thing is such a horrible thing. I remember hearing people use this all the time in church, and I never agreed with it. Always had a hard time with it because they would talk about how God, puts your sins as far as the east is the west into the deepest oceans and all that stuff. And the implication, not only the implication, but the way they talked about it was, well, he forgets your sin, which never made sense to me because I didn't understand how an omniscient, all-knowing God forgets. So I don't forget incredibly painful things that have
Right.
taken place.
Right.
How in the world is it that he can just forget
Yeah.
it? I think the bigger miracle is that he remembers, but he treats us
And
as
he
though.
does. Yes, exactly.
forgot.
Exactly.
And that's the real place that we want to get to is where, and when resentment, I think starts really leaving in us, and all of a sudden we start living in freedom of these other people who we think we're punishing by holding on to it.
Exactly. And
When
they
it-
have no idea. They're just living their life.
They're just living their life. And yeah, so just a few things that we're going to leave you with is what resentments are you holding on to? Are you holding on to any resentments? And if you're holding on to those things, how is it serving you? Do you see it making a difference in your life, good or bad? And if you're ready, what areas of your life that are you envying other people and you're carrying that with you? And then maybe it's time to forgive. And how you do that is something, honestly, depending on how you think spiritually, but it's something you could do alone. It's something you could do with a friend. And sometimes doing it with a friend is really powerful because if you can say, I just need to forgive this person, you don't have to go to that person. Matter of fact, I'd recommend you not go to that person, especially if it's a dangerous person, somebody who's really hurt you. And in all honesty, they are irrelevant. It's about you and you getting free of that thing. So
Yes.
do you
And
have
and I'm not going to lie, it helps because like I said, I never got an apology or an asking of forgiveness from my ex-husband, but I chose to forgive because it was eating me up. And so for years, but I mean, I forgave him years ago. I'm not saying this has been recent, but I'm just saying all of a sudden you just are like, okay, I'm moving on.
I can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you, honestly, if you're thinking you can move on without doing it, I'm just going to tell you, it just continues to catch up to us. It's always there. You can't live independent of it. So there you go. We're glad you're listening, and thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you share it with a friend, if you post it on your social media sites.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Yes, and comment, like.
And also, if you're on Instagram, which I'm assuming you are, you can follow me at A Daily Dose of Coco. And there I have more other things. You can just follow me for my daily life with food and health and wellness.
We're obviously going to be posting stuff about our podcast.
On the podcast. Yeah.
And you could follow me at something. Let's see here. Benny Gonzalez. Is that what it is? It's very difficult. BENNIEGONZALES. So we'd love for you to follow. And our podcast Instagram that we will develop one day.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we're going to do that. So I don't know what that was, but thank you very much. Well, Valerie, it's been a pleasure as usual. And so
always good.
We look forward to this is going to drop, right at my birthday.
Oh, cool.
So right near my birthday, I'm going to be older, but less old than you.
You're catching up.
Yes, that's right. All right. Well,
all right, you guys.
It's been a joy. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.